So, welcome. If you want to introduce yourself, go for it. Oh.
My name is Isaac Wells. I am an actor and a voice actor, and I've done many video games, many little projects, and am probably most known right now for being the internet's disturbing fact Skeletor.
I love it. For those of you guys who are tuning in, my name is Aaron or A Goldman. I am the founder and one of the creators of the Anime Blog, as well as I do a lot of anime stuff and just coverage on YouTube and on social media, and also right here on my channel, DNA Studios. So anyway, with that, let's get started. So welcome and thank you so much.
No
So
problem.
anyway, I had a couple questions for you. How did you get started with the Skeletor stuff?
I basically just um I wanted to parody Alan Oppenheimer's voice, and I
Mhm.
had seen some memes of different things from Skeletor saying ridiculous things, and I just thought, hey, I could probably do that because I'm a voice actor and I wanted to do that kind of voice. So I basically said, hey, I'm gonna just do these disturbing fact style memes as Skeletor, and um, you know, it just kind of happened by accident. So didn't
Cool.
realize it would get so big.
Yeah, yeah, wow, that's cool. I've seen you come up quite a bit on Instagram, and some of the ones that you do are absolutely like I bust out loud. Like the most recent one, the one where what's it? It's like something about one of the phrases is the same thing as saying like pay attention. You like uh you, you like a little shit or something like that. It's this one. There we go.
You
Uh,
meet again. Remember, with all due respect, is the
Oh,
slang version.
that one, that one absolutely makes me laugh every time.
that was funny because it's I grew up I was born in Canada, or no, sorry, I was born in America. I was raised in Canada um half of my life, and also raised in Florida my other half. And I would realize a lot of dialects and stuff like that, and speech, like things. And whenever somebody said "with all due respect," and I always thought that was funny, but somebody gave me the proper way, like, hey, Skeletor should say it like this. And I
Yeah,
was like, oh, okay, so I'll just do that. And I just thought, it very much is that way, like, with all due respect it means, especially when you're talking to younger people, it feels like. So I
yeah,
was like, yeah, we all know what you're saying, but it's just funny to just kind of put it out there.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, tell everybody more about your voice acting because you do a lot of different stuff. Like you're in like a ton of stuff. So
Yeah, I got to do small things for Marvel, for Family Guy, for different companies, some games on Nintendo, PlayStation, stuff like that. I was lucky enough to get those roles, and although they were smaller, um, I always am very proud of the stuff that I've done with them. I just audition, and hopefully they pick me.
that's cool. Yeah, I have the Skeletor stuff. Every time I'm on Instagram, I think you come up, which is cool. Yeah, yeah.
I just like
It's so
I like giving people a laugh. Um, I was always very much like, hey, I'm here to entertain people. Like I felt like I was built to entertain and to do stuff. And Skeletor, especially, I'm going to conventions now, and people know who I am more than ever before. And they just say how much it means to them, and how I've even had like some deeper ones, because I thought these were just random annoyingly funny jokes. But
yeah, yeah.
some people have come up and told me, like, they were going through rehab and drug withdrawals, and I do the Skeletor thing daily. And so that was one of the many things in their life, trying to fix themselves, that they would look forward to. So they would look forward to one of my Skeletor videos every day, to get a little bit of a laugh. And that just meant so. I was like, I did not realize how important it was to to somebody else. And I say that knowing that like I'm a kid that, you know, like cartoon stuff was an important thing to me. And they might not know. So it's really weird being on the other side.
It's funny because like you doing the Skeletor kind of reminds me of stuff I used to do when I was younger. I used to sit there, like, so for example, like Ed, Ed and Eddie, I would sit and watch Ed, Ed and Eddie and just constantly be mimicking the voices. I would be sitting there like, yes, I will, or just funny stuff like that, and just pretending that you're playing pretend like every actor, every good actor does. And
Yeah,
so it
was all just impressions. It's all just like, hey, that's a cool thing.
Mhm.
Let me see how good I am at doing it, and it's just gets stuck in your head kind of. And you know, Alan Oppenheimer's voice for Skeletor for the original 1980s ones was so
Mhm.
iconic. That character would not have been as popular without that voice.
Yeah.
So it was just funny.
Did it take you a while to really get it down? Because like, when I hear you now, like you sound almost exactly like the like Skeletor back then. Do you know what I mean?
That's I get that a lot, and like to me, I don't think I do, but like I'm like my own worst critic, and I'll always be like, yeah, that doesn't sound good enough, and I'm like recording it and like or in here in the studio and be like, I don't like that tone or something like that. I'll do like 5 or 6 takes for like each one, but
Yeah.
I noticed that a lot of people were saying that you know it does sound like Alan Oppenheimer. And this was, I'm not trying to do his 100% impression. I always say that. I'm trying to do my version of him, my interpretation of that voice. And
Gotcha.
so, like, when I do it, I'm just, like, just go high pitched. And I always start out like my word to keep me into it is remember, because I always start saying that with, remember,
Yeah.
and
Remember.
it's,
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
it's just funny because like I'll talk like Skeletor or something, and I won't realize how close I'm coming because I'm always like, yeah, I doesn't sound just like him, but it's close enough. But I'm glad that a lot of people, like especially people who are fans of the show, hear Alan Oppenheimer when I'm doing it because that just means a lot.
I mean, I remember watching the series, back in the day. I watched like the whole series, and I'll bring up like a clip on YouTube of Skeletor, and then your little remember stuff, and I swear it sounds very much like the original actor, which is crazy to hear.
That was the goal. I wanted people to be like, is that like I wanted people to be like, yeah, this character is doing something. And like my thought process for Skeletor was it's just the 1980s Skeletor from the He-Man, but it's in 2024, the 2020s, and he has access to internet, and so he just wants to tell people really messed up things because that's like he would be a troll. He's like basically an internet troll, but like I wanted to make him like a wholesome, kind of troll. I didn't want to make fun of anybody. I didn't want to be specifically targeting anybody. I don't think that's fun. It's just that he's kind of trolling humanity as a whole.
It's
So I
funny.
thought
It's
that was
like
pretty
it's
funny.
both funny, but also like really. I feel like it's hilarious, but it's also like something evil that I can imagine Skeletor actually doing, right? Which is
Yeah,
like which
yeah.
is
I just wanted to
great.
go off of what I thought he would do from what I knew from the show, you know.
Yeah,
So
it's
I know
perfect.
he
I
was
mean,
like this evil guy, and but he's an internet troll. I would love he just works as an internet troll.
yeah. Is there any other characters that you like? If you could do it with one of their characters, like, would there be any other character you could do something similar with, or no? Would it only be Skeletor?
I'm having like currently I'm in process of doing like a pitch for something with somebody, and so they wanted me to play Skeletor and He-Man.
Mhm.
So Skeletor's voice is obviously the really high pitched voice right here, but then He-Man was just like, now Skeletor, like he's really
Yeah,
stern, that's not how you treat people. So we're doing this pitch thing. I don't know how long it's going to take, but there's so many people who want to see more from the Skeletor that I've kind of recreated that
yeah.
I would be very much open to doing other characters like uh I've done impressions all my life, but like He-Man would be like this, like I said, like this stern voice, and then like Beastman would be like this, and stuff like that. So I can do a lot of them. I just haven't got a chance to do it because Skeletor is front and center.
Gotcha. Because like I could see like a great like Doctor Evil or like any other like villain, character doing something funny like similar things like that with a character that's a villain.
Oh, definitely.
So
I think it just happens to work really well with Skeletor. Like you can take other villains and do it, but I think in terms of Skeletor, um, he's just the one that it works with the most. He's a skull face.
yeah.
His whole thing is evil and against people. So of course he would feel good about messing with people's heads.
Yeah. So how'd you start in voice acting? What got you in originally? Like, did you always do voices when you were a kid and just kind of jump into it that way?
I didn't realize I was doing voices. I just it kind of like I would hear like a funny voice, mostly when I'm watching TV and stuff like that, because I grew up sort of mostly in the hospital, because I was born with a bunch of I was born with congenital heart defects. So
Oh
it ended
gosh.
up, well, yeah, and a lot of people don't know that because I don't really put it out there. It's on my profile on Instagram, but we're doing like this mini documentary on me. But I've had like 5 heart attacks, 5 strokes,
Whoa. Ouch.
over like a dozen open heart surgeries. I've had cataracts. My left
Oh
foot's
man.
dead. Um, it was
Gosh.
there was a lot of drama or trauma for me, but I basically escaped playing video games and watching TV. And video games were so early in the time they didn't have voice acting back then. But I would watch movies and be like, "Ooh, that's a really cool voice," and I would just try to do my own stuff, or I would even meet my family. Like some of my family were in Florida, and some of them had very much the big Bubba redneck voice, and I always thought that was hilarious because he'd be like, "Well, I got a dryer in my yard. You want to take it out there or something? Like, I don't know. You want to go get a beer? And that's just kind of like the things that I was like, that's just an insanely funny voice, and I just want to have that all the time. So I started just mimicking everybody I could, and then I started doing a little YouTube channel with my friends. It never got popular or anything, but somebody had seen it, and I was making fun of Solid Snake a lot, because Metal Gear is like one of my favorite games. And he saw the thing, and he was like, "Hey, I'm doing this little flash game on this website called Newgrounds. Do you want to do a voice for it?" And I just said, "Yeah." And then he knew somebody, and then that person knew something. So
Wow.
like I just eventually got on lists and stuff like that. And that was one of the first voices I really wanted. Like I really enjoyed doing with Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid. Um, because the game meant so much to me when I was a kid. I played, Metal Gear, Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear Solid 2, all that stuff. And so like Snake had this really weird voice to me. He had this like, it was gravelly and it would go up and down like this, and his inflections would almost not be in the right location, like of the speech, Metal
That's
Gear,
cool. Yeah.
um so I just thought that was really interesting. And yeah, it's just how I started. And I just now I'm like on audition lists, and just try to audition for whatever I can. And if I'm lucky enough to get them, I'm super happy.
That's awesome. That reminds me of kind of how I started doing this with the YouTube stuff. A buddy of mine, we just started talking about anime on the web. We created a web page, and our web page kind of took off, and we just kind of started doing this. Now my buddy, he went off doing his own DJ thing. He still helps me out every so often, but I kind of took over this because this was kind of my passion. And I'm actually currently myself actually looking into taking voice acting courses because just like you, I would sit there, I hear like Rick and Morty or Goku or whatever, and I would just try to do my own version of that voice. And someone told me I do a pretty good Rick and Morty. Morty. But yeah, so but yeah,
Well,
just
it's one of those things where it really took me years and years of just practicing and keeping on it and developing the tools to do it. Because it's very much like an instrument. Your voice, you have to, there's still stuff that I'm still figuring out about my voice. Like I'll hear something and be like, I really want to do that, but I'll have to learn how to do it. It took me like a it took me like a year to learn how to do Patrick Warburton.
oh
Uh,
wow.
because when I was just when I did Family Guy, I was like really really big into that. and he was like one of my favorite voices, and he was like Kronk from Emperor's New Groove. He's Joe Swanson on Family Guy, of course, and you know, just a smattering of other amazing characters. But it was all
Yeah.
just like his regular voice, and I was just like, oh man, that's so cool. So I just watched him talk and stuff like that, and you'd have to like, you know, he always squints when he's like, you know, doing like the voice acting, like, or voicing something and talking, especially script reading, and I would just be like, oh, let me just lower my voice. So yeah, then it would go like this. That's his yeah, it's kind of voice. It's kind of like ravelly. It's kind of like, you know, yeah. So
That's cool. Are you familiar with you might know him, or you might know him. There's a voice actor who he does who he's been to conventions and he's done quite a few voices. Anthony Bolin. Are you familiar with voice actor Anthony Bolin?
I'm not
Um,
familiar with the name now.
he also does he does a similar impersonation of Emperor's New Groove. I don't know if you guys both are very good. The
Well,
two of you.
it's because I was just like a fan of it, and I wasn't trying to do it as an impression to like do a character or anything at the
Gotcha.
beginning, and then now I'm just like, I just liked his voice, and so if something funny popped in my head and it was in his voice, I would just bring it out. Um,
Have
um,
you ever done that like in conventions or anything? Have you ever done any have you done that Patrick Warburton at a convention?
yeah, I've got a lot of people want me to do it, like some personal like friends of mine and stuff like that, or like, hey, can you make like a voice record, like, am I answering machine as Patrick Warburton, and
Yeah,
some
yeah.
close friends that, you know, that I hang out with, and I was like, sure. And I always say something as I was at C2E2 in Chicago the I think it was like a couple weeks or a month ago, and they had me hold up a comic book, and the comic book was called Boobs, and so I literally just said a bunch of euphemisms, you know, about it, but in that voice, and they like recorded me and stuff like that. I was like,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
look at this comic, it's boobs, it's bouncing right off the page, it's you know, it's full of, you know, handfuls of content and material, you know. So, but like that's I just went off on it and they recorded it. So I do it all the time. I don't really care because it makes people smile and it's usually associated with a good memory, which
It
is
is.
great because, you know, I don't know if he knows that personally, but Patrick Warburton's voice is associated with a lot of really good memories, like Emperor's New
Oh,
Groove
yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, Family Guy. He's hilarious in Family Guy. So
Oh yeah, like I like it. You know, he's such a complexly weird character in Family Guy. You know, you
yeah,
never know what's going to actually happen with Joe. But I mean, then again, that's like every character in Family Guy. That's how it's structured, you know. So, but I like it, you know, when he'll just be like, just some of my favorite scenes were like when Peter was driving that tank in the early seasons, and he was just be like, he was like, opened up the mirror, and he was just like, oh, good, that mirror I ordered from eBay, and then you saw the tank, and he's like screaming, you know, I don't know where you got that thing, but I'm impounding it, you know, kind of like, you know, uh,
toothpaste joke when Peter runs over him with the tank and he goes,
yeah.
"You,
He's like,
you look like a half screw smell of toothpaste."
you look like a half empty tube of toothpaste, you know, like, and I was like, that's really fun. But there's some other stuff, you know. Obviously, I like Joe Swanson, but I like his other work, like in different things. Like he was Lemony Snicket's in Leary, or Lemony Snicket's in the Netflix series of a series of unfortunate events. He was in a sitcom called Rules of Engagement. So I just kind of watched all those, and you know, that's where I was just like, okay, this is where his, you know, I'd be like, oh, this is where his voice is right here. You just need to, you know, go a little bit, keep low, keep your, you know, throat up, you know, down and stuff like that. You know, I basically it's just the impressions, and most impressionists will say is you got to get the speech pattern down right, and then you can get the rest of the, even if the voice doesn't sound 100%, if you get the speech patterns down right, people will hear the voice, they'll fill it in. Um,
Yeah,
So that's kind of like what I did with Skeletor a little bit as well. So I was just trying to get his speech patterns correct, and then I just started making up my own based on what I heard about it, because I had started people knew who Skeletor was, or who Skeletor is, that have never watched Masters of the Universe. They're too young,
Wow.
and
And
they're
they
like,
still
"Oh yeah, Skeletor, that guy." And I was like, "Yeah, that's from Masters of the Universe." And they were like, "Oh, we never saw the show. We just saw your thing on
yeah,
TikTok or Instagram."
yeah, yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that. I'm your first introduction to this character. I feel kind of bad." Like, uh, but at least it's being, kind of out there for other people. I mean, like newer people to discover that character. If all it does is help Skeletor be known, I'm really happy about that. And I've said this many times. I am not the official voice of Skeletor. Uh, yeah, but a lot of people have been asking me if I would do it, and 100%, I would 100% be into voicing Skeletor for some series.
I mean, as a person who did watch the series right back in the day, and then hearing you like pop up on Instagram, it cracks me up every time. I'm a huge fan of the way the random facts, the fun, just the way you show Skeletor on screen, and then the way he runs away after it's like until we meet again. Yeah,
It's
it's just
funny too because I was using the old animation for a little while, and then I was like, this animation isn't like HD enough. So I got an iPad Pro with the pencil, and I basically just reanimated. I animated Skeletor himself
wow.
for him. So like, I'm not a cartoonist or an animator by any means, but I just basically just took Skeletor from what I could see and just drew him. That's why it's all HD in
Yeah,
every clip recently.
it looks great. You know, it looks
Well,
good.
I think it worked. It could be a lot better, but I think I just did it enough to just work on my Joker and what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it definitely looked like I could. If you asked me, I looked at like the original animation versus your like redone version. I don't think I could tell really, other than just the quality being better. I mean, the artwork looks almost exactly to what it did back then. In fact, maybe a little bit better than what it did back then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I just tried to keep the kind of the same look, like inspired look. Um, I noticed like when I'm drawing his teeth, they use very non-scale like teeth. Like they don't like back in the day, animation was they were trying to get the most for the cheapest, so it was very
yeah,
cheap.
yeah,
And I was like, okay, well, I want to keep that cheap feel but make it like good. So like on the new Masters that Mark Hamill voices, it's all like really HD'd. Everything's really smooth, really great, and I was happy with that, because it's kind of a continuation. But I know a lot of people are saying you should be the voice of Skeletor, but that was a serious take on
yeah.
Masters.
Have you gotten any offers for like anime work as far as like being in any like big shows? Have you gotten any like has any studios contacted
I've
you? Like
auditioned for a lot of the big shows, but
really? Wow.
unfortunately, I haven't got anything yet. So fingers crossed. But
Yeah.
I am glad to be on some of the audition lists, and hopefully I'll be on more. I'm just happy to do it. I'm happy that I'm here to just do it, and I would love to just keep entertaining and doing all those shows.
Yeah, I mean you'd be I could see you doing characters for who knows what, like anything pretty much. Just because you're really good at what you do. I mean,
Well, thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah.
It because artists are their own worst critics, so it took a while for me to be like, yeah, I'm actually pretty good at this, instead of being like, like that self-critical, like, oh man, I suck at this, but after a
Yeah, yeah.
while, when you develop your talent, you can admit like, yeah, you're good at this, and I think
I
I'm
know how
pretty
you
decent at
feel.
it.
I know how you feel because I'm the same way. Like I'll take like for example this interview, right? I'll take my startup of any video and be like, oh man, that sucks. I look terrible. The whole formula there sucks. I'm like, this is awful. Someone else will look at it and be like, oh, like you're a natural at this. I'm like, I wish, I'm like, I'm not MKBHD or any of the big YouTubers or Linus Tech Tips or anybody else you see out there, right? I'm just trying to do my own thing and have fun doing it. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah,
I'm like, just like,
that's like the goal. That's the
yeah.
goal. Just have fun doing what you do, and hopefully you'll build some really cool, fan base or some dedicated fans, and I didn't realize how many people were fans of my Skeletor thing. Like, I didn't really grasp the reach that I've had until I went to C2E2, because there was a lot of people who knew who I was. I was like, yeah, I know they're getting views and everything, but they're like, the world population is so huge that probably nobody knows who I am in my vicinity. And
Mm-hmm.
people I work with on film, even, that have joined my we help do a independent film production company. Even people were like, yeah, we know who you are. And I was like, that's
Wow.
weird. I think one of my funnest memories lately was I got to meet Kevin Smith and talk with him for a little bit.
Oh wow, that's
Um,
awesome.
at C2E2, and I was like, talking to him about heart stuff because he had a heart attack too. So I was just trying to, kind of show him that we have something in common. And I was like, hey, do you know the disturbing facts Skeletor meme? And like it was like a light bulb that clicked on me. He's like, oh, that's you. You're the guy. And I was like, oh, so that means you've seen them. Wow. So um that's a really big thing to me. And I was talking to another voice actor that I had been a personal fan of,
Yeah.
um, and it was so weird because I'm sitting there and his name is Roger Jackson, I believe, and he
I've heard of
was
it.
he was the voice of Mojo Jojo for uh, yeah, for
Powerpuff
for
Girls.
for Powerpuff Girls,
Yeah,
Powerpuff
yeah.
Girls, right here.
Nice,
And
nice, nice.
he was also he would a very, very obscure game called Alice Madness Returns, and he was in this
Oh
Alice
wow.
series. He was the Cheshire Cat, and that happened to be a really big thing
Cool.
to me because I was like, oh man, you're like the voice of the Cheshire Cat, and I really liked that game. I know it was obscure, but that really was because I really like American McGee's interpretation of stuff, and um he was also the voice of Ghostface in Scream, and I didn't know any of that. So I was
Yeah.
talking to her about it, and I was like, "Hey, I was just like, hey, I do voices too. I'm so happy to meet you. You're a really big inspiration." Because as much as people like me, I'm still like hugely fanboying out of people that I met.
Oh yeah. I
Um,
know how you feel. Believe me.
and so he was just like he knew who the Skeletor memes was, and he was like, do the voice,
And you're like, remember.
and I was like, all right, remember until we meet again, like kind of thing. And then behind me, there were the two other. I didn't know who was behind me, so like behind me there was this, like they were like, oh, it's Skeletor, and behind me was the whole cast of the
Wow.
Powerpuff Girls. Sarah Strong,
Oh
everybody was
my.
there. They all knew who I was from my videos, and I asked
Wow.
one of them. I was like, hey, how do you know who I am on this?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, oh, our teenagers watch your videos.
Oh
So
my
I was like,
goodness.
I watched your stuff when I was a kid, and now your kids are watching my stuff. That's weird.
So, do you know? And that's funny because I have a similar story. That do you know the? I don't know if you're familiar, but here, let's see. I can actually show you because I can turn my webcam here. And so you said you're a fan of voice actors, right? Well, check this out. So on the shelf is a bunch of Steve Bloom and Joshua Seth, and above the thing is the guy who does Leomon from Digimon. I have a Mortal Kombat sign from the guys from Mortal Kombat. The one that goes, "Get over here!" Actually, wait a minute, I do have sound effects. Finish him, right? All those, all those guys, right? And I was at a convention, I think, once, and I was going to meet Bryce Papenbrook, the voice of Meliodas, who actually had the Seven Deadly Sins thing around my neck. But I was going to meet him, and before I even got in the door, and before I got in the door and walked in, Bryce was standing in the room, right? And I walk in, and he walks up and he goes, "I know you. You're the dude on the internet who talks." And I'm like, "Am I really getting recognized by a voice?" And this is when I was still kind of small. I mean, now I'm a little bit bigger than I was back then, but still, I mean, you just get people just like instantly. You walk in a room, they're like, "Oh, like I know you. I saw your videos," and I'm like, it's funny because I watched him as a kid and all these other guys as a kid. So yeah, I'm the
it's
same
it's
way.
it's really weird, like a metamorphosis like that, like how time changes, and you're like the one kind of idolizing
Yeah,
um these people, and then it's weird when people know who you are and you're like, I don't know how to. I don't. I really at some points I just go with it because I'm just happy that they do. But like I didn't realize how many people were watching my stuff. So of course most people that I could meet would probably have seen my video somewhere because like if I look at my Instagram Reels analysis, I get like 6 million views or more a week.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah.
And it's really about, like I've nailed down a pretty good formula. I've reinvented this character. I, for all purposes, am this character. And I've even run into, I posted on my Instagram like a week or so ago, but I've even run into people who have started AIing my voice, but it's not as good as what I'm doing. Like they're AIing my voice that I'm talking with. I said this on the video, and it's not even the Skeletor voice, and they would just be like, "Look, Skeletor effects," So obviously, imitation is the greatest form of flattery.
Hey, I've always thought so.
But like I was like, well, in this day and age of content, influencing and people making money off of this, it really is kind of a a punch in the face to steal your content. And I know a lot of people have done that, but I'm just, in the end, I'm just really happy that people are having a good time with it.
Yeah, well, a lot of people have problems with AI, right? There are a lot of voice actors. A lot of people are like, "Hey, like, how can you train AI on my voice and not give me credit or not give me pay me for all my years of acting?" You know what I mean? Which I can understand why a lot of people would be mad. But I wanted to, before we run out of time, I wanted to ask you, well, where can people find you if they're looking to find you and to watch more of your stuff, and like, because I know you have stuff on Instagram and you have stuff on YouTube. So, where else can people find you?
I've just started using, I've backed off of TikTok a little bit. It's really hard to post to every single social media. So Instagram is where I get the most interaction and basically love from my fans. So Instagram, it would be mine. My name, Isaak Wells. And I'm also on Facebook. I post the reels to the Facebook actor page as well. And I also do YouTube. And it's all the same name. I'm boring. I literally just named the YouTube channel my name.
That's all right. A lot of people do that.
I know it would have been cool if I did a whole different thing for Skeletor, but I'm like, he's, if they're fans of it, they won't mind the name. Like, it's Isaak. Hopefully when they see the Skeletor name, they associate my name with it.
I looked you up on YouTube to watch more of the Skeletor stuff. So
Yeah, I'm trying to focus a little bit more on YouTube. I just had 5,000 subscribers, which is big for me because I wasn't even really planning on using YouTube really, and I was like, oh, okay, well, if there are fans there, I would like to just get the videos out directly from me to them.
You can also do more there, right? Because Instagram, you can't do as much, right? They won't let you say certain things or whatever, right? And
you
so
have
you can do more.
You have to really creatively censor yourself. I've done a lot where, if you say the word that just immediately comes to your head, it will get, banned. But if I say it in a fancy different way, it's not going to push a negativity on the algorithm. And, kids probably won't really understand it, but adults would. Like when you're referring to physical contact between you and another person, I refer to it as intimacy instead of the other thing or something like that. And I think that gives Skeletor a higher brow kind of I'm a fancy person, kind of motif anyway. So I think that's actually funnier how that develops because he censors himself. It means he's more highbrow than you. He's I'm better than, and that's basically how Skeletor is. I'm the most evil, and I speak better than all of you. So
I wanted to tell you, you've inspired me to start messing around with my own. You and a lot of other people have inspired me to also mess around with my own voice to see what else I can do. Well, you heard me do the remember thing, which is a I should say an imitation of yourself. It's my kind of imitation of you doing Skeletor, which is it's not an insult. That's just how much I admire you doing that.
No, that's fine. I don't. People have asked me hey, do you mind if I do my own? I was like, dude, by all means, go ahead. I was uncomfortable with the AI thing because there still needs to be regulation. That's it. AI is different from somebody real doing it because they love it. That's different.
Do you know the guy Kyle Bear who does the last time on Dragon Ball Z. So
I don't actually know him, but I do know that thing because I did a voice for the Dragon Ball Z mobile game, and it
oh
was like a
wow.
commercial thing. It was like not even maybe 9 or 10 words, but I had to like do that, like, the next time on Dragon Ball Z,
Ball
kind of
Z. Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but it was like a mobile game.
yeah. Well,
It was usually
there's a story that I told him, and I reached out to him on Instagram, and I told him, I was like, hey, I was like, did you know that? I said, first, I'm a huge fan of yours. I said, second, I said, did you know that when the Dragon Ball Z movies came out, I said I was sitting in a theater, and I was just playing around trying to fool the people in the theater, and I was sitting in the back, and I was like, last time on Dragon Ball Z, Goku takes on Frieza, and everyone in the theater thought it was the film doing it, right? And they all went nuts in the theater. And when I walked out, and they're like, who did that? And they're like, was that Kyle? And then I was like, oh, I was like, that was me. And the fans like came over and started lifting up and tossed me in the air, like, yeah. At first, I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't want people to know. And so I told Kyle the story. He goes, oh my god. And I was like, yeah. I said, this is how much fans want you back doing the DVC. But who would have known? Like one little small impersonation that to me didn't sound anything like him, right? I thought, oh, it's just a cheap imitation. It sounds terrible. But apparently, like you were saying before, the way people heard it, the way it came out, it was close enough that everyone was like, oh, that sounded like the guy from Dragon Ball Z.
Well,
Yeah,
that's what it is. I mean, you did it out of love and respect for that thing. You loved it. So you're just like, yeah, I'm going to do it the best way I can. And I think that's what a lot of people feel. And I'm really happy that a lot of people like that you had that moment, because it's really touching to see that other people love this thing as much as you do.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
that's the thing. I think that's why, like, when I see people like yourself who are doing voice roles and doing awesome stuff like that, that inspires me to do more stuff, right? And I think that's also why I just chose to have you on, because I was like, you're just a really cool dude who I think is doing something awesome and who is just really cool.
And that means a lot because a lot of times we'll be as creatives so into our project or doing the thing that a lot of times I won't personally think about who's going to like play it or listen to it. I'll just be like, I need to get this perfect for myself, and then it reflects later. Like I've done a couple of, like, right now I'm doing voices for a game called Gunman Contracts, and
Nice.
it's a VR and non-VR game, but it's like John Wick in VR. And
cool.
He started off as like a Half-Life Alyx mod, but it was so well received that people wanted, thousands and thousands of people wanted like this game. And we got in contact with each other, and I was like, yeah, I'll do voices for you. I love this game. I played the mod myself. I'm a gamer. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And I was like, that mod was just something else. I had never seen anything like it in VR up to, like that point, and he was like, hey man, yeah, let me get you on the voice team to do different various things. And I was like, oh man, that's so great. But I was trying so hard to like be these characters, because you train as an actor to like, be as convincing. And he came back and he was just like, yeah, these voices were amazingly done and all that stuff. And even like there's some voice actors from like Boneworks and stuff like that in the thing. And I was just super happy to have.
Did you want to say anything else before time goes out? There's like less than a minute left. Did you want to say anything else?
Well, I'm actually working on a superhero project where it's a small little social thing. Like it's called Kickback Heroes, and I get to play a live action superhero. So I get to be in the suit and everything like that.
Oh, that's sick. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about it. We're doing it, a bunch of film friends and I are doing it, and we're super.
Hi there. Please subscribe or follow DNA Anime Blog and DNA Studios on all of their social media platforms. Okay, bye!